Okay. I'm calling the call to order the Community Engagement Advisory Committee meeting today. The invocation will be given by Mr. Pastor Sheets.
Let us bow our head. Heavenly Father, we just come to say thank you, Lord. Lord, before I ask you for anything, I just want to thank you for everything, Lord. Because we would not be able to do the things that you have called us to do in our communities if it had not been for you. Lord, we thank you for waking us up this morning, Lord. Now, Lord, I ask that you come in the midst of us, Lord, that we may be able to do the will of the community and for Onslow County. And Lord, we'll give you all the glory and all the honor and everything we should do. In your son Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Welcome and introduction to the members. We'll start over here with Pastor. You're going to introduce yourself.
Okay, Bishop Will Smith, Vice Chairman.
Marcia Wright, I'm with the, on the subcommittee for this committee, which is a Community Development Advisory Committee.
Pastor Richard Sheets, member.
Tracy Jackson, Community Engagement Manager here with the city.
Lily Gray, Director of Community Engagement with the city.
Kristen Laney, Student Intern for Community Engagement.
Bethany Barbie, Community Engagement Intern with the city.
Pamela Trafton, Community Engagement Coordinator.
Gloria Whitley, a member.
Councilman.
Councilman Brian Jackson, City Council Liaison.
Gordon Marshall, member.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome to tonight's CPD meeting. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
I make a motion to adopt or amend the agenda as appropriate.
I guess it's time to read that.
Everybody read it.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
All in favor? Gloria's still reading.
We're not in the minutes yet, just the agenda.
Just the agenda.
Just the
Yeah.
agenda.
They're both on the agenda.
Okay. Which one is it, agenda?
He's asking for a motion.
Motion.
No, he's already got a motion.
We got
We got a
Second.
motion with this.
That's
Second.
second.
Oh, you are.
I wasn't here last week, remember?
He's asking for the agenda to be adopted.
Oh.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I should clarify that for you.
I'll call for the question.
You have a question?
No, I'm calling for the question. I seconded it.
Okay.
We clarified that now.
Okay.
So all in favor?
So,
All in favor? Now we'll reappoint members of the board. We'll have Mr. Claiborne and Councilman Jackson.
Good evening. We have had two members that have been serving faithfully, some for much longer than others, and we appreciate your experience and appreciate continuing to work with us going forward to help improve our community and our cities. And first, I would like to recognize Mr. Frank Claiborne. Mr. Claiborne, this is a pen on behalf of the city. Thank you for joining with us for another 3 years.
yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And Mrs. Marcia Wright, thank you for all your experience and thank you for all you share with us and thank you for hanging on with us for a little while longer.
Thank you.
She going somewhere?
You know about the longest serving. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, Gloria, you've been on for a good while too. You've been on for a good while too.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's not too long. I got enough.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from April 22nd of 2019? If so, I make a motion to adopt or amend the minutes as appropriate.
I move to adopt the meeting minutes from our April 22nd meeting.
Thanks, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Wait, you need a second.
You did a
Oh,
second.
get a second, okay. I'll move too quick.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
No.
All in favor?
Second.
No,
Second.
he's calling for the vote now.
We'll call for the vote now. in a minute.
For the minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I had to read them first because I hadn't read.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
All in favor?
That's
Aye.
a yes.
Okay, aye.
Trying to get that last one in.
Okay, we're gonna skip over planning board update. We're gonna go to the CEA update by Pamela.
All right, good evening. How's everyone doing? Great, so if we can get to the next slide. Our SEAC action items, the following slides will introduce items that we talked about in the April 22nd meeting and to give you an update of where we are currently at on those items. The first item up actually coincides with our community engagement subcommittee where we met on June 12th. And we had, my notes out real quick. We had our UNCW interns with us, Krista Laney, Bethany Barbie, our SEAC members, Stephen Forney, Gloria Whitney, Marsha Wright, and Paula Jones present. And the purpose of that meeting was to do the initial brainstorming for our summer youth program, which will begin in fiscal year 21, which starts June 1st, 2020. In plans and talks of that, our timetable is not a year as we would normally expect it to be. So our subcommittee meeting, we will be actually meeting more regularly than waiting until our August meeting because our timeline is now to do the initial planning from July this year through December next year in hopes to have the program actually together to present to council within January 2020. And if we are able to present it in January 2020, we will use from January to June to follow our grant cycle to where we will have an application and we will have an opportunity to present it before nonprofit boards as well. With all that approved within that time frame, we will be on target to start July 1, 2020, which is our fiscal year 21.
Okay, thank you. So, are there any questions or? Okay, thank you. Now we'll have our census update by.
So the next part of the action item update.
Not trying to get rid of her, are you?
Right, so we will be having a vendor mixer August 1st, 2019 from 6 to 7 p.m. The purpose of the vendor mixer is to reach out to the community and find our general contractors, our home repair contractors, residential and commercial builders, so we can try to boost our pool of contractors that are able to bid whenever we have projects going on. So within this hour, we will have Tracy and myself explain our process that we handle, and we're also having our finance team come out and explain what the bidding process looks like. So we will have flyers that are available to send out. If you know of any contractors to share, please let them know. It's only scheduled for an hour at the Center for Public Safety at 200 Marine Boulevard. And we have RSVP cutting off at July 29th.
Do we have a shortage of vendors in certain areas, like for instance, air conditioning? Because I noticed we have a problem at the apartment complex I sit on as a board member. We can't get enough air conditioner tanks.
Well, for our process, we actually don't look for specific that will fall under a subcontractor. We bid out to the full general contractors and then they push the scope out.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Now we'll have the census update by Ms. Marsha, right?
At this point, as you know, I'm on the committee the complete count committee for the census. That really is the Civic Affairs Committee. We're serving in that capacity. We did it in 2000, 2010, and we're doing it again this upcoming year. We had a workshop on June 20th that was held over at the youth center. And I want to say about 40 people were present, maybe a little more than that.
Great turnout.
Good turnout. And the concern there was, again, we're trying to gauge how we're gonna get the word out and really get this going, because it's extremely important that we all participate. I think there was a sort of a little Census 101 overview about what this means, what we're gonna try to do this time. And I think we've already mentioned to you that each person, man, woman, and child that is counted represents $1,623 in federal money, $205 in state funds that either come to our area as a result of the count, or we lose as a result of not counting fully who we should be counting. And most of the program that we had on June 20th, we were there from about 8 in the morning till about noon, was spent breaking down into groups and trying to work on how to get to hard-to-reach populations. And there are some areas, and maybe I'll share that next time we have a meeting, some of the hard-to-reach areas or hard-to-reach territories in the county. You might be surprised where they actually are located and who they are. So we're working on those things to make sure that we put in extra effort and contacts and follow up with those groups that we are having or will anticipate having a hard time reaching. During the 2010 census, if you were here, we had a major undercount because of the rule that they used regarding deployed military. In 2010, they counted all the deployed people based upon their home of record, which meant that we lost somewhere between 20 and 25,000 in our count. This time, we were able to get that rule changed, and we're now counting using the businessman's rule, or whatever they get, rules for businessmen. So that, say if you live here, but you are on a conference in California on April 1, 2020, but this is your home. You actually are coming home and going to sleep and living here. That's where you will be counted. You wouldn't be counted in California simply because you were in California on that day. And so that should be a great help to us. But we still have to communicate that out and make sure everybody understands that, you know. So I think they took all of our work, and I think we'll probably get some feedback on it as to what we discussed and how to reach these populations. And the one other looming issue is still before the court system. I think it's the Supreme Court, regarding whether or not there are people in our administration who want to have a question of citizenship on that census form. And until that's ironed out, and I think hopefully it'll be very soon, the actual official paperwork or whatever cannot come out. And the census, I guess I'm editorializing right now, is meant to count how many people live in this country or sleep in this country or wake up in this country on April 1st. There's truly no real purpose for it. It gathers information about various issues so that they can dole out the money I talked about earlier. But the reason for a census is very, very simple. How many people are going to wake up in this country on April 1, 2020? So the census, the citizenship issue is still looming out there. Most of us are hoping fervently that it does not go forward with that, because that would have a serious impact, as all of you would imagine, you know. And yet people would still be using services, roads, schools, highways, all that kind of thing. So we'll bring you an update as we go along. And I'm hoping that as we continue to meet, that we will iron those things out and bring to you. And there's lots of very, very good materials and videos and so forth that have been created, but they still haven't been rolled out to us because we're still waiting on this issue before the courts.
And I want to
So
add
we'll
something
continue
to
to
this.
report as things go along.
Yes, ma'am.
I am going to a conference with the National League of Cities, and I'm on the Finance, Administration, Intergovernmental Relations Committee. And one of the issues that we'll be dealing with is the census, so I'll bring back any information for that as well.
Thank you.
I think the one major question that kind of puzzles a lot of people, especially people, you know, I don't deal with the census, I mean, I fill it out, is how do we get in those neighborhoods? Okay, how do you get people in those neighborhoods of people who never fill out the census? Okay, that's the issue. The issue is, can you go in those neighborhoods, knock on the doors, you know, without getting bit by a dog or whatever, okay? And get somebody to fill out that paperwork. That's the question that you gotta figure out how to do. How do we
Yes.
do that?
Well, there's gonna be a combination, you know, since the last one, the internet and using the internet has become absolutely ubiquitous. Back in 2010, it was what some people did, what most people did. Now it is what everybody does. And so, but at the same time, it's not necessarily the best way, depending upon who you are. So it'll be a combination of phone, in person, sitting down with somebody, internet. It's going to be a combination. It will not be all internet, so there are people who are afraid of that, you know, particularly for areas like New River area. I found out recently, only 44% of people who are in Census Tract 26, which encompasses the New River right near here, are on broadband, if you can believe it.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you go by fast food places and you see kids congregating, they're not really congregating, they're doing their homework because they don't have broadband at the house. And many of them have computers and iPads they've been given at school and cannot use them at home. And so they're having to go by McDonald's and places like that have hotspots. But
Maybe some of the kids that you say that be at these places can't afford, the parents can't afford that. You just can't say they.
That's the issue.
That's the issue.
Oh, there's many
That's what she
issues,
bringing
yes.
out, that's one of the issues they can't afford.
And so
We're
if
trying to figure out how to
we
do
can't do the census all on that way because that will lock out people who cannot afford or don't have it or whatever the issue might be. And then some people are just gonna really need a face-to-face conversation, you know, especially these hard to reach populations, you know. And they include children under 5. I'm not sure how that got undercounted, but they estimate that we've seriously undercounted young children. Not quite sure. Minority populations, veterans. And there are just some neighborhoods that, like I said, maybe we can have a little bit of time in a couple of months to show you which neighborhoods had a very low response. You'd be surprised. So it'll be a combination of a lot of things. The main thing we're trying to do right now is figure out how we can educate the entire population so that people who wouldn't call down here or stop me to ask might ask you because you're in their church, or they're in your church, might stop you because you're a next door neighbor. And we want you all to have accurate information. So we'll continue to share that with you as we go along. And if you have questions or issues that you're hearing, please bring them back, because we'll be continuing to meet on a regular basis, the Complete Count Committee. So if you're hearing things that we need to know, don't hesitate to contact me.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Okay, next we'll go to community development by Ms. Tracy Jackson.
Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to give you a quick update. The 5-year plan has been submitted to HUD. They responded with some more questions and we've answered those and also forward that to HUD. So I am looking to get an approval for the 5-year plan. That's going to encompass our funding of about $1.8 million over the course of 5 years. So we have that submitted and we're just waiting for HUD's final approval. Wanted to also touch on the Fair Housing Plan. I am going to introduce Kristen Laney. She's been working on the plan and she's going to give you a brief overview and the status on what she's been doing while she's been an intern here with the city.
So I'm a summer intern from UNCW, but I actually live in Jacksonville, so that's why I selected this as my internship, because I wanted to do something for my community. And so I've been working on the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. Currently, the biggest thing that I've done is updated all of the data that was originally in there, looking at population information and income information, things like that, from the US Census, and then those estimates that come out from American Community Survey. So I'm about 60% done complete with the Fair Housing Plan because I've done all of the updates and now we're just doing some more research and looking into what those impediments are and what kind of solutions we can offer for those. So I've been doing that. I was also privileged enough to go to the Onslow County Health Department, had a 2-day seminar about the social determinants of health and power and privilege and how that impacts healthcare in communities. So pulled some good information out of there that I'm actually applying to the Fair Housing Plan. And then 2 weeks ago, I was invited to represent the Community Engagement Department in Kinston for the North Carolina Department of Labor Safety Awards. So I was able to go to that luncheon and meet our Commissioner of Labor, Sherry Berry, and receive the award for community engagement. So it was a great afternoon though. So that's what I've been doing this summer.
May I ask a question, ma'am?
Sure.
Have you found any particular type issues or impediments in this particular community that stand out?
There were already issues listed, impediments from the last one. We're looking into those, and we're also looking into comparing our impediments with another community that's very closely related to Jacksonville out of Goldsboro. They have a similar community due to population size and the impact of military there. So we're looking into some of those impediments that they've had and seeing how they compare to Jacksonville.
So it goes across a spectrum of population demographics. You get youth, military, elderly, whatever.
Yeah, and we look at disability status and things like that as well, and incomes and different kinds of household building, households with two parents, households with single parents, and whether it's male or female single parents in those households and how that affects housing, affordable housing for those folks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Also, with the capital improvement projects, wanted to give you an update on the Jack Emiette bathroom, the Georgetown sidewalks, and the Georgetown bathroom. So here we have the Jack Emiette bathhouse. It is completed. I think it is already opened as far as, we had some issues with some fixtures, but I think they have opened it since then. And we have a nice bathhouse at the Jack Emiette splash pad. We also completing the final phase for phase 1 for the Georgetown sidewalks. We installed sidewalks from the park all the way up past the Onslow County Board of Education. So you can see that we are completing that. We just got a little bit of grading to do, but we will consider that to be finished, I think, next week. Also wanted to tell you that you didn't mention the Georgetown bathroom. Oh, the Georgetown bathrooms. So that Georgetown bathroom, that is scheduled to be completed next year. Right now, we have a schedule of that we developed in July. We're going to be doing the environmental assessment so that we can also hire the architect to come in and do the same bathhouse that they did at Jack Emiette. So we're finalizing those plans, and then we're also working in-house with engineering to get those plans ready for bid. So we anticipate the bidding process to be started around October, so that we can complete that bathhouse at least by the 1st of April of next year. And we'll be coming and giving you more updates as we progress along. I also wanted to tell you about the acquisitions that we just purchased. 427 Myrtlewood Circle. That is a burned out unit. It's on the end. So we'll, Ms. Gray, she's going to be giving a status update dealing with the Country Club dealers and our partnership with UNCW. UNC Chapel Hill, sorry, UNC Chapel Hill. I'm so used to saying UNCW with my interns. And with that, Pamela, she's going.
Before she goes into the next thing, one thing I wanted to ask about Jack Amiette, I know we talked about the bathhouses, but we were talking about the actual community center. Have we had like any forward movement or update on that? I don't know if it would be you.
Actually, I would defer that to Councilman Jackson.
Yeah, we still have to look at design possibilities, what can actually go there, what if we need to, what actually the facilities need to hold,
Okay.
and stuff of that nature. So I'll get back with you when we have more information concerning that.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
No,
I have one quick question.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
Splash Pad open?
Yes.
Jack Amiette, okay.
It was open Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Yes.
now we have the community engagement by Ms. Pamela.
Good evening again. So we'll first start out with our demolitions. Our newest one took place at 1311 Lejeune Boulevard. which is the Dirty D's Laundry that is in front of Discovery Church. So they recently purchased the laundry facility and they have demolished it to expand their parking lot. So this took place yesterday. The words that are on the building itself represents their seminar that they have been covering over a few weeks that dealt with strongholds. So they wrote strongholds that they identified on the actual building. And within a video, they announced strongholds are coming down. And as soon as they said strongholds are coming down, the excavator went through the building. So that was, and if you drive by it today, I went through this morning and the building is completely down at this point. They're just in the process of cleaning it up now. We do have some more residential demolitions that are taking place, but this is the newest one that we are working on currently. All right, next we have our Jacksonville Youth Council celebrating our 20 years. In our April meeting, we discussed that we had our 20th anniversary in May. So these are pictures. We have two currently. What you see currently is our current youth council members that are actually meeting with alumni members. And we had pictures that was put together for a slideshow. So we have our alumni telling us what took place during that time. So it was a great turnout for our social. All right. The next thing that we have coming up with our youth council, I'm gonna turn over to our intern, Ms. Bethany Barbie.
Hey, good evening. So as an intern with the city, I have developed our Youth Empowerment Summer Series. It is a 4-part series, and along with Pam's guidance, we chose 4 topics. Our first session is in 2 days from now on Wednesday, and that's going to be titled Diploma Now What? And at this, we're going to do an open panel discussion with representatives from a 4-year university, a community college, small business, and armed forces, and we hope to create a dialogue between the youth and the representatives. Our second one, Dawn Rochelle is coming, and she's going to do a presentation on the power of influencing. Our third session, we have 2 speakers here. One topic is going to be on benefits like 401ks and retirement, and the next is going to be on money management and bank accounts. And lastly, on July 24th, we have a drugs and crime real talk session. A former UNCW professor of mine is going to come in and talk about his experience being a parole officer and his personal experiences with opioids. And then Julia Parrish is coming in that oversees the juvenile delinquency program with the police department. So if you guys know anyone, we'd love to have them come.
Is it still open to come on June 26th so we can get some kids?
Yes, you guys can register online on this right here, and it's open to high schoolers.
Our next update we had was May 14th, we did our Neighborhood Connect session. We talked about it in our April meeting. So these are pictures that show the event in itself. Dr. Woodruff opened the session with greetings. We introduced all the departments within the city that were present, and then it was a complete open house at that point. So the pictures that follow behind it show where the citizens got to interact directly with the departments. If they had any specific questions, they were able to get it answered then or be able to follow up with it. The plans is to do this at least once a year that allows everyone to come out and interact. So the feedback turned out well, that it was well received, and we'll continue to move forward with it.
Go ahead.
Okay, good evening. I will provide you with an update on our work that we're doing at Country Club Villas. Just last week, City Council authorized us to move forward with RFP proposal, as was mentioned earlier, for UNC Chapel Hill to come in and provide some technical assistance. We're focusing on the Country Club Villas neighborhood. You all have been aware of that. Just as some background, it's a townhome development constructed in the late 70s, early 80s. And we know that there are 126 units, about 83 distinct owners. When we did our neighborhood survey back in December, we found at that time 42 of the units were vacant. And the neighborhood has been in various stages of decline over at least the last 10 years that I've been here. We've been working in there. We also did an income survey and verified that that neighborhood is eligible for designation as a HUD neighborhood revitalization strategy area. This is the area, for those who may not know, it's located right behind the McDonald's, and I believe it's a CVS drugstore, the intersection of Western Boulevard and Country Club Road. It sits right adjacent to Carolina Community College across from the mall. It's an ideal location, centrally located in the city, access to a lot of amenities, and one of the areas that we thought backing up, as an older neighborhood and being the focus of what we're here to do, it makes sense that we would go in and target this area. Some of the things that we've looked at were the impacts this one neighborhood is having on the community, or even in their own community. We have been in conversation with our police and fire departments. We know there's been an increase in calls when you look at what's going on there compared to the rest of the city. We know that through our code enforcement efforts, we have a lot of minimum housing cases and public nuisance complaints in the area. And we also know that's impacting the citizens and the owners and residents there, their quality of life. We see property maintenance going down, landlords not maintaining property. We see property values going down, tax values are going down. We know that home ownership rates are down. We also know that economic mobility is down. It's a low income area for a reason. And so we want to work to reverse those numbers, so to speak. Each direction should be going, each of those impacts should be going in the opposite direction. Next, we mentioned the opportunity with UNC School of Government. They have a development finance initiative. It's a program where they work with communities throughout the state of North Carolina to help us figure out how to bring private investment back into neighborhoods where we've seen it disinvested. And they have assisted 134 similar projects throughout the state. This is an eligible area, so as such, it's eligible for community development funding, and City Council did authorize us to spend the $25,200 that it will cost to bring them in. They will we will engage officially effective August 1st. When they get here, they're gonna work with us to identify what are the public interests in that area, what is it that we would like to see as a community. They will meet with various stakeholder groups. That includes not only the tenants and the residents, but the businesses, the colleges, our advisory committees, this one being one, our environmental and appearance committee, planning board, and our nonprofit organizations. All of the folks that would have a stake in the community are at stake in helping the residents there. They will conduct market research, help us figure out what that neighborhood can handle, what's the demand, site analysis, infrastructure, things that we know we need to work on, but how do we actually get that done? What's financially feasible to actually do, so that we walk away with some recommendations and action priorities. As Tracy mentioned earlier, we purchased 3 properties there already. We have not done anything with those properties contingent on these meetings taking place. We've had different residents give us different ideas for how those properties could be used or repurposed. And so we want to make sure whatever we're doing is going to be of the highest and best use for the area. So what they do will help us identify those catalytic, I'm saying that wrong. Catalytic redevelopment opportunities, and then prepare the neighborhood revitalization strategy. Once we have that strategy, then we can submit to HUD for approval, official approval and designation, and then that allows us to go in and invest community development funding the way we have identified. So you will be updated when they get here. They will definitely meet with you, and so we will need your input and direction as well. And just another update on the connected data for economic mobility. I mentioned a few months ago that Ron and I traveled to Baltimore, Maryland, and we had an opportunity to get some insight into what's going on in the area of economic development. They have since contacted us and asked us if we wanted to participate in a community of practice exercise. We would be one of 6 communities, I believe, in the country that will work to increase economic mobility over the next decade, which is their mission, using information and data to help us measure our success, our benchmarks, where we are, where we want to go, invest in the evidence, data evidence in such a way that we're really focused on improving our outcomes. And this will provide new opportunities for us to have greater impact. One of the things that we know, we provide funding to nonprofit organizations annually. But what we really want to know is how are the programs we're investing in truly affecting economic mobility? Are we seeing people actually leave and exit poverty? Are we seeing their children exit poverty? And so that's really the long-term goal. And they'll be here, actually I have a conference call with the team this week to work on the schedule. Sometime July-ish timeframe, they will get here and start holding up community meetings similar to what UNC Chapel Hill is doing, but more from a community-wide perspective, where UNC Chapel Hill is focused on one neighborhood. This is gonna be focused on our entire human service process, every touch point that affects economic mobility, education, economic development, housing, employment, social services. Everyone that touches that person has an impact and an opportunity to make a difference. So the theory is that you collect the data, use the data to make decisions, and those decisions should drive outcomes. Very, very simple, but when we work in silos and we don't ask the right questions, we could be using our resources a whole lot better to affect the change that we'd like to see.
Now, would that program be like a hands-on with the community?
Oh, yes.
Or just data put in from?
No. It is hands-on training. They will come here, they will provide the training. It includes webinars, seminars. This is a research-based program. It's offered through Johns Hopkins University, through their GovX Academy. So they're here to really teach. And so no, they're not gonna just talk about data, but they're gonna train you on the philosophies, I guess, behind what we're trying to do.
So we're gonna be looking at new measures in terms of how we will put money out in the community going forward.
Yes, and that is something and you think about when you have limited dollars. One thing that, not to point out any one organization, but just think about food pantries and the people that come and get food. Do we ever ask, why are you coming to get food? Do we ever take a look back and say, what other supports or training do they need so that they don't have to come back Friday after Friday after Friday? And so you want to start asking different questions. How many of the people that came to your food bank actually went on to become self-sufficient? And how are we helping them become self-sufficient? Is that even a requirement of receiving funding? Or is it just, we're going to feed 100 people, next year we're going to feed 200 people, and next year we're going to feed 300 people? What is that doing for economic mobility? So it's going to make you look, it's not that you don't need to feed people, but are you looking at where you're really trying to get people to when you're delivering the services?
Solutions.
The solutions.
What you're saying is, are we giving them a hand up instead of a hand
And
out?
hand out, exactly. And that's through all the programs that we offer. And looking at it generationally, when you see that cycle repeated, you want to try to break the cycle.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Okay, we're now at our splendid moment to display our community worthiness here. One city, our city, my city moment. Does anybody have a story or entry for that?
Tracy does.
Actually, I have a story. I'm glad that you asked.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Take that.
So we recently participated in National Community Development Week in April, and we showcased and highlighted a home that we had for sale at 310 Sherwood Road. Of course, we showed our SEAC membership. They were there along with the potential home buyer. Councilman Lazar, he was also present, and Councilman Brian Jackson was there. We also have Ms. Jacksonville, who is just recently won
Miss North
Miss North Carolina.
What?
She was there.
Yeah.
She is from Jacksonville.
Represent.
You represent
She's representing Jacksonville.
All right.
So also at the open house, we had the builders, which was Delphi Construction. We had the lender, which was Atlantic Bay Mortgage. And of course, we also had the potential home buyer. And I'm pleased to say that we recently had a closing. And she recently moved into her new home with her family. And she is very appreciative, and it was a joyous moment to see her and her family walk through that door for the first time.
That's awesome.
So, we turn it back over to Mr.
One question,
Franklin.
ma'am. Can HUD money be used to pay mortgages on certain parts of it, like Section 8? I thought I read an article here just recently, that Section 8 funds can be used to pay mortgages.
Section 8 can be used to pay the monthly payment, not the
Payment.
payment.
Not the payment.
Well, when you said payoff, I'm thinking lump sum.
No, not the payoff, I'm talking about the
Yes.
monthly
It
payment.
can be
It can
subsidized.
be used to
Thus,
subsidize
you
your
can go
mortgage.
ahead and use that program to go ahead and pepper the, or salt the community.
Exactly, that's exactly right, and a lot of folks, a lot of individuals don't know that, so just the same way you can use Section 8 to pay rent, you can use Section 8 to pay a house payment.
And I confess that having been on that board for a while, I learned that, you learn something new every day. So, that's our next, as members of the board of directors for that agency. I have one moment I would mention too, connected with that.
Go ahead.
And I guess this be appropriate, but it just has been on my mind to mention it, that Pastor Sheets and I serve on that board of directors. We recently had a 2-day application process for people who, we haven't opened up our Section 8 application list, I think since 2011, if I remember correctly. And every so often you have to open up the list, but the problem we have, of course, is very obvious here, housing stock. There's no available housing, even if we had money to put somebody in. And it's become critical after Hurricane Florence, because what we did have has now been occupied by people who were displaced because of hurricane and have never gotten back into their original home. And even people who were here fixing things and so forth, they got put in. So it's really been a problem here. But we took an open sign up for that. I think we wound up signing up over 500 people on that list, which shows you how critical housing need is here. But what I wanted to mention was that we had a problem twice, as I remember, during that period of time that required us to contact Jacksonville Police Department. And I just have to say, I just wanted to put on the record, and I said the next time I run into Chief Yanero, I didn't think at the time to take anyone's name, but once we called, they were there very quickly, very discreet. This was no rolling up to the place with lights flashing and all this kind of carrying on, because that would have been catastrophic for us, because we were, dealing with people who were community-based, people who just need housing, and they were in line. It was a pretty warm day. It wasn't hot, but it was warm enough. They were very discreet. They came in and parked far side of the parking lot, because we let them know it was an emergency, but we needed their help. And they came up, took care of the situation. You wouldn't even have known they were there if you didn't just know they were there. And we had another situation very recently that occurred, and they handled it with all discretion, and because of the nature of what we do, having too much of that kind of publicity would just be catastrophic to the program. And they really just handled it. So I thought about maybe contacting the chief to let them know specifically the dates and the times so that he could say something to the people, because I'm sure they have schedules as how they work. So he would be able to tell who was on duty at that time. I cannot tell you. But it was just something I wanted to mention, that, and he's got I think he's not changed, but sort of has his people on a mission or a program of really working much more tightly with the community
He does.
rather than adversarial.
Yes.
And when I heard about that, I said, I need to get that on record. It's two times where we had called him, and it was every bit of discretion they used.
You definitely would appreciate
And,
that.
Yes, he would, and I think you were at the meeting
Yes,
we
ma'am.
just had. He's made this presentation twice that I've been in the presence of the presentation. First was at First Baptist Church. Reverend Brown invited him over, and he spoke to that group. And then just recently, last week, he spoke to the mayor's Faith Leaders Committee. And he is doing a tremendous job in training the police officers on fair and equitable policing and their approach to policing and how they engage citizens. He's said they can report, I want to say it was like an 50% decrease in use of force because of the new tactics and the new training, crisis intervention training. He's also gonna share that training with members of the faith leaders as a civilian training that he can offer as well as the law enforcement training. So he's offered that up, but he's doing tremendous work, and so he would appreciate it.
So I'll certainly follow up with him, but I thought it was a good place to mention it here.
The program makes you look at the, when you look at the news at night, the program just opens your eyeballs up to the idea that there's different ways of dealing with situations. I mean, if you saw that incident where in Phoenix, that young policeman ran up there and, you know, got a mother and a child there, that could have been diffused pretty easily, but you live and learn.
Yeah, Chief Yanero has been very good with that over the years of constantly trying to improve community relations so we can avoid future problems. So, hats off.
So, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Just wanted to make-
Appreciate your time, man. Okay, any future agenda items by any committee members?
We have some on the list for you already.
I see.
Work our way through. I can tell you that today I attended a long-term disaster recovery training out at James Brunt Community College. Very, very informative. Lot to digest. But we have our Onslow Strong Disaster Recovery Alliance active here in Onslow County. It's up and running. The Unmet Needs Committee actually met 2 weeks ago, and we actually resourced 5 families, connected them with resources in the community. The case managers are now bringing those cases through. So I can definitely provide more of an update on that process at the next meeting. United Way is the lead agency, and the next big step is the marketing phase, so people will know that we're here. So as that is developed, I'll bring that information to you.
Anybody else got anything in that area? Okay. Members are encouraged to submit comments for community consideration and awareness. I think they're looking at some of the key dates down here. We're already in the midst of that. Surgeon City Institute, I saw that in the paper the other day. Grand opening, the Surgeon City redid itself for grand opening.
Not redid itself, brand new building.
Brand new
Brand new, that's right.
Yeah, and it's at 9:30 on the 26th, 50 Court Street.
Okay.
Excuse me, how many does that building hold? It's over 400, right?
I think it's close to 400.
Something like that, which makes it one of the larger facilities we have in the area to have events.
Oh, so it can be an event center?
Yes.
Yes, you can rent it out.
I do plan to go to see for that very reason.
And it's also like tomorrow, isn't
It's Wednesday.
Wednesday
it? Yeah, I
morning.
got an invitation already. Let's see it.
If you can make it, stop by and take a tour.
9:30.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are there any other questions or topics for discussion?
Just wanted to go over, as far as make it known that the Home Buyer Education Course is gonna be held July 20th. Anyone is interested in learning the process of home buying, they welcome to call 910-938-5269 or 5286 to register for the class. Cost of the class is $25 and it will be held here at City Hall.
And if I could mention one, this nonprofit executive roundtable on August 21st for nonprofit organizations, this is one that I would definitely encourage you to attend. We're bringing in some folks from emergency management to talk about hurricane preparedness, getting ready to move into our next season. And what we've learned from Florence, we need to make sure we're prepared going forward. And there's gonna be a special session for nonprofits at that August 21st roundtable. So when you get your email invite, please register.
Also, you
What
probably.
date is that for the round
August
table?
21st, it's a Wednesday.
Also, you'll probably get another email invite to help us celebrate National Night Out. This is a way for SEAC to connect with the community. We will have the table booth out there and we welcome any and all support that the committee can give us.
Okay. Since there's no further business, for the committee to consider, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Who made the motion? I make a motion
All
that
in
we
favor?
adjourn.
Thank you, ma'am. All in favor?
I'll second
All
that
right.
motion.